Greetings, fellow Stone Cold Steve Austins. Tiki here.
And Jacob Wile too.
And welcome to another episode of Tiki's Universe. Man, I drew that out so long. That's right, folks. It is the show where we recap and respond and discuss all kinds of current animated programming. The list at the moment includes shows like Star vs. Forces of Evil, Welcome to the Wayne, DuckTales, coming soon, Big Hero 6, and of course, Rick and Morty. Oh my god. And Jacob, I'm sad. I'm sad because this season is, it's almost over. We've got the finale next week, and then that will be it.
Yep.
For another year and a half.
Maybe. Possibly.
And outside of the very, very brief Mr. Poopy Butthole cameo we got in the last episode, we haven't even seen him yet. So a lot of loose ends to wrap up. A lot of loose ends. And this episode certainly doesn't help with the loose ends because, man, I guess my thesis statement on the episode, I definitely don't think this episode measures up to the last three that we've gotten, which I think are probably pretty definitively the best three of the season. We'll see how the finale stacks up to them, but Rest and Relaxation, Morty's Mind Blowers, and Tales from the Citadel, aka the Rick Lantis mix-up, all three incredibly, really fantastic episodes. This one is good. I'd say I'd put it probably I'd say I put this episode maybe in the same quality as the Vindicators episode we got earlier on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I wasn't really impressed with the episode at first thought.
Yeah, so I've seen this episode 3 times, and I will say, in terms of humor, it's not really firing on all cylinders, but in terms of it's definitely got some interesting ideas that I want to break down with you.
And I gave it in the emotional impact didn't reach the heights this show can usually achieve.
Well, I don't know. Honestly, it's interesting that you bring that up. I mean, I will agree it's not as emotionally devastating as something like the Destiny scene from season, or wait, is it Destiny? I don't know. It's been a long time where Rick, basically the scene where Rick's kind of contemplating committing suicide in season 2. That was
you mean homoerotic assimilation?
Yep.
Or whatever. Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll talk through it. So first of all, Jacob, I have my crazy little headcanon here that Rick was in cahoots with Bill Cipher to build Beth's crazy imaginary fantasy land. I think it's Froopy Land.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I say this is because it looks a lot it's not upon further reflection, it's not really the exact same thing as Maple Land, because Maple Land was just her imagination creating the whole thing, whereas this is just entirely fabricated by Rick. But I don't know, I just kind of got a kick out of since obviously Alex Hirsch and Justin Roiland are friends, and they've done some crossover, some little Easter eggs here and there. I kind of thought maybe this is a Weird Mageddon Part 2 nod, if anything else.
Maybe.
But of course, in typical Rick and Morty fashion, the the sunshiny exterior kind of quickly gives way to the very twisted. Oh man. I don't know. The cannibal, the baby raping Muppet cannibal thing. It's a little over the top, Jacob. Don't you think? Even for this show, it's I don't know. I thought it was a little excessive.
I honestly felt that was a bit forced even for this show.
It was more just kind of gross out than anything else.
I mean, this show can do gross out humor well, as established in several previous episodes.
Mm.
I mean, I mean, there's a way to do gross out humor right, and here it just seemed like they were just throwing it in for shock value and for to be forced, if you ask me.
Which
I mean, it had
honestly,
fun. It had funny moments, but it kind of just dragged on a bit.
and honestly, I feel like that kind of like forced shock value was one of the things that sort of plagued the earlier episodes of the season too. Like even
I mean,
something
don't
as
get,
good as Pickle Rick had forced shock value in it.
I mean, that episode did it well, if you ask me. Like this, like I said, again, this show can do shock humor and gross out humor, very, very well.
Yeah, I guess
And I just
like I
think
said,
that,
I guess I'm more kind of thinking about, something like the Vindicators episode, where that episode was more just sort of like, gore porn in sort of like an exploitive kind of way.
yeah, I see what you mean.
All right. I don't know. I'm trying to think of stuff that I actually like about the Tommy storyline, but really it's outside of just the Beth and Rick of it all, which we'll get into shortly. Yeah, just this weird, creepy, like like baby eating, Muppet molesting. It's all more uncomfortable than it is funny.
Yeah, and it's not, and I don't think it's I don't know. I'm not. It just like I said, I still think it's more forced than anything. I mean, like they just like should they're like, hey, look what we can do,
Yeah,
or to paraphrase you, look at them go.
look at them go. I think one of my least favorite scenes in the whole season has got to be the play that reenacts everything. I don't know. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I honestly didn't care for that much either.
Like it drags on a lot, and it's just I don't know.
I
Like
mean,
honestly, just on a moral level, and this might sound like me just kind of being just a little delicate flower or whatever, but like it makes me kind of uncomfortable seeing the even if they are deformed aliens, seeing the little kids, like doing all this sexual stuff, like the humping scene in particular was like, oh boy, like this is not territory I want to get into with this show.
it didn't really get to me in that delicate flower that way. It just felt as it like dragged on, and even Rick and Beth's comments on it weren't even that funny either.
No, I mean Rick and Beth's comments about it being dragged on, like honestly, like pointing out the fact that that the scene is kind of pointless because we already know how he procreates because they figured that out on their own. I guess
Honestly, that
the
scene just
joke
felt like
was that they're pointing it out, but it didn't really land.
it's just kind of like padding.
Yeah. I don't know, Jacob, to tell you the truth, the more we're talking about it, like I will get into the stuff I liked about this episode, and the stuff I like about this episode is kind of like the deeper thematic stuff of this episode revolving around Beth's character. But
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I love that aspect of this episode.
but as a
It's just
whole,
that
yeah, go
the
ahead.
wrapping in it. It's like the good president's side of it's like the good president wrapped inside very bad wrapping paper. If you can catch
That's a
my
good way
very
to put
poor,
it.
if you can get through my very poor analogy.
Yeah, so let's save the really cool Beth character development stuff for the end. Oh wait, hold on. Uh Now let's save it for the end because let's get into the B plot of the episode. So after Morty and Summer are bubble gunned away to Jerry. No, not the bubble gun. There's no air in there. uh I don't know. I thought the Jerry subplot was a little hit or miss. To be honest with you, I do like it more than like obviously it's got less substance than the Beth plot, but I found just the individual scenes more enjoyable than the Beth plot, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. There was a pretty interesting side event.
So of course Jerry, let's make no bones about it, Jerry's basically dating a Navi.
Pretty much, kind of.
I don't know. Like I've heard from other people that she's like a mix between an alien and a predator, but I don't know. I think that's a bit of a stretch. Like I think the whole, what is it, the life fusion or whatever they're gonna do? Do you remember the exact terminology?
life bond, I think.
Yeah, the life bond. Yeah, that's totally out of Avatar, and the obvious, like, the tallness and the the warrior princess vibe and the blue skin. I don't know. She really, she strikes me as a Na'vi to me, but who knows?
And a bit of Total Recall thrown in.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just suddenly interested in the Avatar IP because I'm actually going to Animal Kingdom, but
Nice.
anyways. No, I mean, I like, first of all, I like the reveal that, Jerry is just, first, his apartment's very cleaned up, and then he's just like super casually drops that he has telekinetic powers.
And it's all revealed to be this alien lady.
Yeah, I thought that was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I did think that I actually do like the Jerry subplot quite a bit more than the Beth subplot, in spite of the fact that the Beth subplot had a lot more going on with it thematically. One of the things I don't like about the Jerry subplot is, like, Jerry is the interesting kind of character where every time you think he's going to get an ounce of character development and, like, grow a pair, they just keep thudding him into the ground. And I don't know. It's like, I feel like he was a little bit too just arrogant and egotistical this episode. They do call him on it for sure, and he does kind of learn a lesson by the end. But I don't know, like, some of the stuff, like, him bragging about the girl and, like, the whole, the two anatomies and whatnot in front of the kids. Like, it's not that it makes me uncomfortable. It's just that it kind of just makes him look like a clueless dick, which I guess is kind of the point. But I don't know. Like I said, Jerry's the kind of character where it's like you ultimately want to see him become a better guy, but it's just the writers sort of undermine him at every turn.
I mean, I know what you mean, but I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this. I'm pretty sure, like, the way that Jerry's written this episode, it might be one of the big reasons why Dragon decided not to join us tonight, because I know Dragon is not a Jerry fan to begin with, and when Jerry is not painted in a flattering light, it tends to really bug him. So, just speculating about that, just kind of wondering. Anyways,
I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, maybe not necessarily this part, but some of this episode did seem a bit forced. I mean, I don't know if that was forced, but it just seems like he was a bit out of character in a way.
I don't necessarily think it's out of character, because I do think it's. Yeah. I mean, to tell you the truth, I do like this. I do like the fact that we are addressing the divorce subplot in a pretty head-on way this episode. And one of the big things about divorce is the rebound. It's like, anyone who's been in a divorced family situation knows that situation. So it's like, so I do think this episode is a pretty good representation of that. It's a pretty realistic representation of that on Jerry's end.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with that, but I do think that Morty and Summer kind of like go out of their way too. It's like a couple episodes ago they were like saying they wanted to see him and like do all that, but then suddenly they're like saying, no, I don't want to go over there.
Yeah, I agree. That part of the dynamic this season hasn't really been all that consistent, like whose side Summer and Morty are actually on. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I just noticed that it's just like it's almost like they're just kind of hypocritical in a way sometimes. It's like very inconsistent, it seems. I mean, or I might be just seeing it wrong. I mean, someone correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I hear what you're saying. I mean, let's face it, this show, as good as this show is, it does not have the rock solid storytelling of something like a BoJack Horseman or a Star vs. Force of Evil recently, as we saw, where it's like every episode, or at least almost every episode, seems to really play into it. I mean, I know you haven't seen it yet, but BoJack Horseman is like, trust me, like BoJack is the master of serialized storytelling and animation right now. I will say that much. I will say BoJack is like on top in terms of, telling a cohesive story through animation. And it's interesting because Rick and Morty, like this season, I feel like I feel like the more standalone episodes of this season that don't necessarily have to do all that much with the divorce subplot are the better ones. Like Rest and Relaxation is still my favorite episode of the season. I definitely think that episode is like the big standout, and that was just, I mean, it got into some interesting stuff with, the toxic sides of Rick and Morty, but you know what I mean? It wasn't really dragged down. Like, you could watch that episode and, you could watch that episode in season 1 and it would pretty much have the same continuity. And, of course, something like Morty's Mind Benders, of course, is just basically a clip show. So I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the weaker parts of the season have been the way that the writers do try and serialize it.
I mean, don't get me wrong, this season still stands above and beyond for a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I think season 1 is still probably my favorite season. I mean, with season 1, I don't think there's a bad one in the mix. I think every episode of season 1 just kind of hits it out of the park. I do think that season 3 has been the most inconsistent, but I don't know. I'm not saying it's a bad season by any stretch. And by all means, I think all the bases are loaded for a really good finale. So we'll see what happens there. I just think season 3 kind of had some moments where it sagged a little, whereas in past seasons, basically, let's just say the only episode that I didn't really care for prior to this season was the Purge episode. That was like really the only episode of Rick and Morty that I never had a desire to go back and rewatch. And with this season, there's been a good 2 or 3 that I haven't really had a desire to rewatch. So I don't know. Like I said, the high highs are like still really great, like Morty's Mind Benders and Tales from the Citadel and Rest and Relaxation are still awesome episodes. Some of the best of the series for sure. But I don't know. It's a bit of a mixed bag. And like I said, I think part of that mixed bag of it all is the emphasis on serialization. Like, I think this is a show where it's like is interesting as you could go with the serialization of it and the characters. Like, I feel like the best episodes are those standalone, like super high concept type things that just really like really dive into the meat of the sci-fi topic. And that's why Rest and Relaxation is my favorite of the season, because Rest and Relaxation is it's a very fascinating, like Twilight Zone-esque look at, like what defines the toxic part of someone's personality.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think this show could benefit from serialization. I mean, I think there's some aspects of the serialization that has gone over pretty well in this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying all the serialization's bad. I'm just saying I still think the more interesting, like the more standout episodes are the more standalone stuff. I don't know. Might be kind of going in circles on this a little bit, but let's not bury the lead anymore, Jacob. Let's get into the ABCs of Beth, the title of the episode. Oh boy. Okay, so you want to know what my favorite gag in this episode is, Jacob? It's probably the most subtle gag of the episode, but I appreciated it because it was so subtle. Of course, we get the really elaborate box of all the things that, like Beth as a kid had Rick make for her, which, include like, let's see, sleepy time darts, anatomically correct teddy bears, fake fingerprints, silencing sneakers, I don't know, a sentient
taser shaped like a ladybug.
Yep, a sentient pink knife. And Jacob, I love how rainbow colored duct tape is in there. Did you catch that?
But yeah, I did catch that, but explain what you mean.
Oh, I don't know. I just think it's really funny because like it's the one thing I mean, I guess with duct tape I kind of get like you know what, now I kind of understand the nefarious nature of duct tape. Never mind. Shoot, I'm kind of blowing my own joke here. Because you see, to me, I thought the joke was that the duct tape was like the one thing on that list that was innocent. But then I'm thinking, like, yeah, duct tape could be used to like seal someone's mouth shut, or tie someone's hands up, or yeah, you could do some nefarious stuff with duct tape. So, I'm sorry, Jacob. I was like trying to make something out of nothing with that joke. It's a non-joke, fake news. I apologize.
Well, the entire thing was like, how they appear seemingly innocent, then turn out to be
Yeah, you're right.
something something that she repressed for so many years, like believing that she was this normal everyday girl, when in reality she was basically a closet sociopath.
Which I gotta say, I don't know what your take is on this, but I think if anything, this episode was kind of like a necessary penultimate episode character development wise for Beth, because of course we've been leaning a little bit on Rick and her in terms of their dynamic, but we haven't really gotten all that much since the ending of Pickle Rick. I mean, they've had a couple scenes together. It's like it's not like they've never shared screen time together, but this is really the first time we've gotten a Beth and Rick episode besides Pickle Rick.
One part I acknowledge, like one part I liked was like the fact that she knows that's not her original Rick. I mean, she's well
that
aware.
Is interesting. You're right.
I mean, you always talk about like how they drop these subtle hints, like of switching universes and all that it had, but I didn't notice that. Like she's like, oh, she's aware that's not her original Rick, but she doesn't care, or she doesn't mind.
Sure.
Like, for all we know, her original Rick and Morty are buried underground in her backyard.
Oh God. All right.
And not even the one. Not even that's not even the first ones they escaped from the Cronenberg version too.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have to address the big, really heady thing of this episode, which is the idea that Rick could clone Beth, essentially make a perfect clone that would be, like she'd live out entirely like Beth would. He would flip a switch if she ever wanted to come back, and the clone would be gone. And, and Beth could just be free to soul search now that she's discovered this really, this really earth-shattering revelation about herself, which is essentially she shares her father's sociopathic tendencies. And, as she, as is very well put in the episode, it's like, oh, you're, I'm sorry, I'm kind of stumbling over this, but, yeah, you spent your whole life trying to live up to your father and worship your father as a hero, and now you're seeing that your father's a piece of shit and you're no better than him. Basically, something like that. I don't know. I kind of stumbled over that. I apologize. But point is, she's got a lot of soul searching to do, and Rick can basically give her an out. And we see her kind of ponder, and we don't know what the answer is. And to me, that's just sort of one of those subtle, like, we will probably never know if the Beth that we have on the show now is a clone or not.
That's like I said, that's one thing I really did appreciate about this, like the the ambiguity of it. It's like, because there's really no right or wrong in that situation.
Sure.
because either way, everyone could end up happy. And no one would be the wiser.
Yeah, and that was I thought that was a very powerful thing for Rick to do, to kind of I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, on surface, Rick is always, of course, the he brags about being the sociopath who doesn't care about anyone, but in reality, I think it's incredibly selfless. Yeah, thank you. Selfless of Rick to to essentially like give up having any sort of bond with his real daughter in order to I mean, then again, as we already established, this isn't even his real daughter to begin with, so I guess it's not that out of the ordinary for him.
His real daughter's still in Cronenberg land.
Oh boy. All right, Jacob. Yeah, I'd say it's safe to say, upon talking over this episode, in spite of a few good character beats with Beth, Probably my least favorite of the season. I can see why Dragon skipped out on this one.
Man, I don't know if I'd call it my least favorite. I mean, I don't know. I mean, because
It's either
there's a
that
lot of
or
episodes.
episode 2. It's either that or the Mad Max episode.
I mean, I mean, I read that one comment on our video, and I do understand the whole escapism comment now.
No, I mean, I
Which still,
understand that. Still doesn't, like, even though, I understand it, but I
which,
still don't.
which,
That episode is
which
still
again,
not one that I have any desire to rewatch. It just wasn't that funny to me.
I know, and again, it kind of brings in the whole hypocritical nature of the family and all that.
Mm. So, all right. Well, I think we've kind of just worked our way around naturally to the end. Then, so next
I mean,
week, go ahead.
this episode wasn't bad. It was still a good episode and all that.
Yeah, like I said, I mean,
My,
to this day, I think the only Rick and Morty episode I'd consider to be straight up bad is the Purge episode. But then again, I know some people really like that episode, so it's all subjective.
and that's a good thing about this show. A lot of it's up to interpretation and your own opinion.
Oh, yeah. All right, folks. So next week we will be doing the season finale, of course, which is the Rick, Chury, and Morty date, which hopefully will actually involve the plot with evil Morty being resolved or at least expanded upon.
And I still maintain that's like one of the most forced titles I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, man. And of course,
not that it detracts it or anything. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I also want to thank all you guys who tuned in for our DuckTales coverage. We will be doing our very best to get that up every Saturday as the new DuckTales episodes roll out. I mean, I'm just speaking very humbly as a YouTuber. It's nice to see some content we put out actually get some respectable numbers from time to time. Not that I don't care, not that it's all about numbers or anything, just saying, it's nice. It's nice to be like, oh, look, it's like we have a substantially higher amount of views today than we did yesterday. I don't know. It just sends my heart in a flutter. Jacob is just a poor, meager startup YouTuber. I don't know. Am I being facetious? Who knows? Anyways, so thanks for joining us, folks, and see you next time on Tiki's Universe.
Whatever you